Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Best Bakeries in Sydney.
If you haven't seen part 1 yet, let me bring you up to date. But long story short, I went to Lode Croissants in Melbourne and have since become obsessed with finding an equivalent or better bakery in Sydney. Which, spoiler alert, I think I might have. And in this here part 2, we are going to be checking out the bakery where this pie comes from. This pie that has been all over TikTok and Instagram. Today, we're going to be checking out Lode Pies and Pastries, and if you're like me and have never been to Lode, well then this video is for you, as I'm going to be ordering some of their bestsellers and reviewing them so that you can decide if Lode is worth visiting. By the way, I'm Steve from the Fat Life Project. I post weekly food and travel content, and so if that sounds like your jam, I highly recommend clicking on the subscribe button so that we can go on weekly fat adventures together.
Lode Pastries is a cult status bakery in Sydney that first opened in 2021 with much fanfare thanks to the pedigree of chefs behind the store. Lode is the brainchild of Federico Zanellato and Lorenzo Librino of Lumi Restaurant. They set up shop at 487 Crown Street and have been in such high demand that they recently opened up a second location at the new Circular Quay Dining Precinct, located at 33 Pitt Street. They are located right next to the famous Malay Chinese laksa.
I have included the Google Map pins for both stores in my description box in case you're not familiar with either locations so that you can plan your travel accordingly. But here are some differences between the two venues that you might want to know prior to visiting. And you're going to want to pay close attention, especially to the last point.
1. Both locations are open from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. but the Surry Hills location is open 7 days a week, whereas the Circular Quay location is closed on Sundays. 2nd, as the Circular Quay location is located in the CBD, they are busier on the weekdays, especially on Wednesdays for some reason according to Google, whereas their flagship Surry Hills location is busier on the weekends.
But this third point is probably the most important difference between the two locations, and that is that their menus are not identical.
Specifically, if you want their flagship Lumi pie or the famous crown on 487 Croissant, you have to go to their Surry Hills location. And yes, I found this out the hard way. Went to the Circular Quay store and had to do a little detour to Surry Hills. So here we are in Surry Hills, Lode Pies at Take 2. Anyway, here I am finally at the Surry Hills store. Positioned as a high-end bakery, I was immediately in love with the minimalist, clean aesthetic of the store. Everything was so pretty and I was at a loss as to where to start. Thankfully, the staff was super helpful and friendly. Based on her recommendations, this is what I got.
Have a good day.
You too, man. I got it!
Look at how pretty the packaging is.
Now, if you've watched part 1 of this series, you would already know that a plain croissant is my litmus test item for any bakery. The reason is the simple fact that a plain croissant has absolutely nothing to camouflage or hide behind. It's either good or not good. For it to be good, this deceptively simple looking pastry requires good quality ingredients and a great amount of baking skills. Here we have the plain croissant from Lode. It has a light and flaky outer layer, as you can see and hear here. It should also be soft and buttery inside, and in this bakery's case, we go extra fancy as the croissant uses layers of premium Insigne AOP butter from Normandy, France. A plain croissant should also, in my humble opinion, be good enough to eat without adding any jam, butter or honey. And would you also look at these bubbly looking pastry layers in the cross section of the croissant? It is, in my opinion, another absolute hallmark of a good croissant. With the quality of the chefs behind Lode, it was hardly a surprise that their plain croissant hit all of these hallmarks. We are off to a fantastic start. I don't know about you, but I am a little obsessed with anything with yuzu in it, and when I saw this pastry called Everything Yuzu on their menu selection, I knew what had to be done. This pastry looks a lot like one of those wheel croissants that were really viral for some time, which I didn't get around to trying. But if they are anything like this one here, then I clearly missed out. It is filled with citrus curd, and would you just look at that generous filling. The pastry itself was also flaky on the outside and buttery on the inside. The curd was everything I wanted it to be as well. Creamy without being too rich, flavorful without being too sweet. This was heaven. But I do have a slight confession to make, and that is that I'm generally not a sweets person, as in I would much rather have, let's say, a bowl of ramen rather than a sweet baked good. I know, right? However, thanks to Lode Croissant, I have now discovered all these amazing bakeries around Sydney, and also had a Cruffin for the first time at AP Bakery, which you might have seen in part 1 of this series. And that's why when I saw this blueberry Cruffin at Lode, I instantly knew I had to get it. As the name suggests, the pastry's consistency is in between a muffin and a croissant, so it is a little less flaky and thicker. But let me show you what I love the most about these Cruffins. Look at the filling of the Cruffin in this cross section here. As far as Cruffins go, this one is pretty darn good in my opinion, scoring an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I personally think the one that I had at AP Bakery was slightly better, but at this stage it is like splitting hairs, as both are pretty good. Although every single pastry in the display box looked like works of art, this tart looked so damn glorious that I simply could not get it. It is a passionfruit custard tart, and I honestly don't think it needs any further description. As with all good custard tarts, you want a ratio of custard to the pastry like so. And to answer your question, yes, it tastes as good as it bloody looks. But one thing that I haven't told you yet is that in the midst of all these beautiful pastries are two in particular that have achieved absolutely cult status. These highly coveted pastries sell out quickly and are incredibly hard to get your hands on. One of them is this gorgeous pastry called Crown on 487, which is so labor intensive to make that only 15 are made every single day. Needless to say, when I turned up around lunchtime, it was completely sold out. I didn't manage to get my hands on it this time, but I will, and when I do, I will do a YouTube short on it and link it right here. But not to fear, I did get my hands on the other cult status item at Lode, which you saw at the beginning of this video. I almost didn't though, as they were down to their very last one when I got there. The Lode Pithivier comprises a pork and shiitake mushroom filling encased in a flaky pastry. You will get a container with chicken and cream gravy that you're supposed to pour into the hole here at the top of the pie immediately before having it, but guys, I forgot to heat the sauce beforehand, and so I totally failed at doing this. But even though the pie here looks like a total mess, I want to assure you that it still tasted bloody amazing. I can totally see why this is a high demand item.
I also just realized that I forgot to include the prices of the pastries in the video, so I will include them in the description box. And I also want to hear from you. Have you been to Lode Pies and Pastries, and if so, what are your favorites? But also, if you've enjoyed this little food tour, I would really appreciate a like. It is absolutely free to do, but it would help my tiny little channel out so much. Also, this is part 2 of my best bakeries in Sydney series. In part 1, we went to AP Bakery and it was fantastic. I have linked that video at the end of this video so that you can go ahead and watch that next. I've also already checked out a few other Sydney bakeries and will be uploading those in the coming weeks. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can find out which bakery I check out next. If you want to see more Sydney based content, do feel free to check out my Sydney playlist, which I've included in the description box. And if you got to this point of the video, I want to thank you so much for your support. I do hope that you have a fantastic day ahead, or that you've already had a good day. As always, I will see you soon in the next video.
Oh no, I ruined it.
A fail, but nonetheless, we're gonna try to cut this open to see if we can still salvage some useful footage.